They sold you a beautiful map, didn't they? A neat, clean chart with 20 clearly marked stops. Wake up early, take the cold shower, read the 10 pages. They told you if you just followed the instructions, you'd arrive at the destination, a stronger, more disciplined version of yourself. And for a while, it worked. You felt the momentum. You felt the small victories stacking up, one on top of the other, like stones in a fortress wall. But I'm here to tell you what they don't put on the map. I'm here to tell you about the territory itself, the storms that aren't in the forecast, the sheer cliffs that look like gentle slopes on paper, the profound, bone-deep silence you find in the wilderness between who you are and who you are trying to become. They gave you the blueprint for the sword, but they never taught you how to wield it in the chaos of a real battle. This is what happens next. This is the part they leave out. The first brutal truth you'll face is that progress is not a straight line. It's a jagged, violent heartbeat. You thought every day would be a step forward, a little stronger, a little better. But one day, you'll wake up and the fire will be gone. You'll lose a fight with the alarm clock. You'll skip the workout. You'll fall back into an old, comfortable pattern. And a voice in your head, a treacherous, mocking voice, will whisper, "See, you haven't changed at all." This is the first great test. Discipline isn't about never falling. It's about the grim, exhausting, unglamorous act of getting back up when every fiber of your being screams at you to stay down. It's about forgiving yourself for the stumble, not by letting yourself off the hook, but by lacing up your boots and taking the next step anyway, with the bitter taste of failure still in your mouth. And as you start walking again, you'll discover the second truth, and this one hurts. True discipline breeds a profound loneliness. When you start holding yourself to a higher standard, you become a mirror to the people around you, and most people don't like what they see. Your commitment highlights their excuses. Your early mornings mock their late nights. You become a ship pulling away from the harbor, and for a while, they'll wave from the shore. But the longer you sail, the smaller they become, until one day you look back and the shore is gone. I remember one specific Friday. My phone was buzzing with invitations to parties, but I was lacing up my shoes for a brutal 10-mile run in the pouring rain. And in that cold, wet silence, seeing only my own reflection in the puddles on the dark street, I understood. This was the price. And for the first time in my life, I was willing to pay it. Then comes the paradox, the cruelest cosmic joke of them all. The great reward for your discipline is simply more and harder discipline. You thought you were climbing a mountain to reach a beautiful plateau where you could finally rest. You were wrong. You were climbing a mountain to get a better view of the entire unconquered mountain range that lies beyond it. Every demon you slay reveals a bigger, uglier one waiting in the wings. Every challenge you overcome just qualifies you for a more difficult one. Discipline isn't a debt you pay off. It's a rent you pay every single day for the right to occupy a space of growth and excellence. The finish line is a mirage. The road is all there is. And on that endless road, you will realize the fourth and perhaps most terrifying truth. Your own mind is not your ally. It is your primary, most intimate, and most relentless enemy. It's a master negotiator, a saboteur hiding in your own command tent. It will whisper the most convincing lies in your own voice. Just one day off won't hurt. You've earned a break. This is too hard. Why are you doing this? It will weaponize your fatigue, your desires, and your fears against you. The real war isn't against the weights in the gym or the task on your desk. The real war is a silent, brutal, moment-to-moment civil war fought inside the fortress of your own skull. Discipline is the art of recognizing that voice for the traitor it is and calmly, coldly refusing to surrender. Sounds exhausting, doesn't it? It is. But let me ask you, who do you want sitting on the throne of your life? Yourself or that whispering voice of doubt? This internal war is invisible, which brings us to the fifth truth. Absolutely no one cares about your effort. They will only ever celebrate your results. No one is going to give you a medal for waking up at 5 a.m. when you were exhausted. No one will throw you a parade for choosing a salad over a pizza. The world is a cold, indifferent spectator. It doesn't see the sweat, the struggle, or the sacrifice. It only sees the trophy at the end. You cannot rely on external validation to fuel you, because that fuel tank will almost always be empty. The only approval you can depend on is your own. The quiet, unshakable nod of self-respect you give yourself in the mirror is the only applause that will ever truly matter. That's why you must understand the sixth truth. Motivation is a myth, or more accurately, it's a fair-weather friend. It's the spark that might get you started, a glorious, intoxicating burst of energy. But it's fleeting. It's unreliable. It will abandon you on the coldest, darkest, rainiest mornings. And that is when discipline takes over. Discipline is the grim, robotic act of doing what you said you would do long after the feeling you set it in has left you. It's a choice, a cold, hard, conscious decision, not an emotion. To build your life on the shifting sounds of motivation is to build a house in the path of a hurricane. And as you master this, you'll uncover a more subtle enemy. The seventh brutal truth is that your most dangerous foe is not hardship, but comfort. Hardship is an obvious threat. It's a monster with claws and fangs, and you know you have to fight it. Comfort is a warm, sweet poison. It's a velvet cage. It's the slow, gentle erosion of your will to strive. It whispers that you've done enough, that you deserve to be content. The moment you begin to believe that, you begin to stagnate. And in the universe of growth, stagnation is just a slow death. The true warrior is not the one who can endure the most pain, but the one who can resist the most tempting pleasures. And yet here lies the great secret, the eighth truth that makes it all worthwhile. Discipline is the only true freedom. It sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? We think of discipline as restriction, as a set of rules. But it's the opposite. The person who is a slave to their impulses, to their moods, their appetites, their procrastination, is not free. They are a prisoner in the cage of their own weakness. By saying no to your lower self, you earn the power to say yes to your highest goals. The discipline to manage your finances gives you the freedom from debt. The discipline to train your body gives you the freedom from illness and weakness. The discipline to focus your mind gives you the freedom to create the life you actually want, not the one your whims and moods dictate for you. But this freedom comes with a warning. The ninth brutal truth. Burnout is a very real, very dangerous cliff. You are not a machine. A blade that is sharpened constantly without ever being used or rested will become brittle and shatter. Unrelenting, merciless self-flagellation is not discipline. It is self-destruction. True discipline is tempered with wisdom. It's the wisdom to know when to push through the pain and when to strategically retreat and recover. It's understanding that rest is not weakness. It is a vital part of the process. It's how you consolidate your gains, heal your wounds, and prepare for the next battle. Ignore this, and your war for self-improvement will end not in victory, but in collapse. But all of these 9 truths, they are merely the perimeter walls. They describe the shape of the battlefield. If you forget everything else I have said, remember this next one, because this isn't just another truth. It's the one that holds the entire fortress together. It is the key to the whole kingdom. And the final truth is this. The most important battles you will ever fight are the ones no one will ever see. It's the quiet decision to get off the couch. It's the silent scream you swallow when you push for one more rep. It's the invisible act of choosing the difficult, important task over the easy, meaningless distraction. Your character is not forged in the spotlight in front of an audience. It is forged in the silent, lonely hours, in the crucible of your own private commitment. So yes, the map they gave you was a lie, not because the directions were wrong, but because it could never prepare you for the reality of the journey. This path is not about feeling good. It's not about motivation or public glory. It's about forging an identity. It's about repetition until the action becomes part of you. It's about stacking those invisible wins day after day until your very essence is transformed. I knew it would happen. The moment I started building my life around discipline, around small victories, around the illusion of control, I knew that one day I would wake up and everything would feel gray. Not broken, just empty, like someone had drained all the color from the world while I slept. That morning came exactly 3 months after I started my journey. I had been so proud of myself. I felt invincible. But on that Tuesday in October, my alarm went off and I couldn't move. My spirit felt like it was made of lead. And in that moment, I realized my system hadn't just failed me. It had become my prison. And to get out, I didn't need a better plan. I needed an escape map. Here's what nobody tells you about building discipline. It's not about creating an unbreakable system. It's about creating a system that knows how to break properly. Most people think discipline is this monolithic wall of consistency. Wake up at 5 a.m. every day, work out, read, meditate, never miss a day, never be human. But walls, no matter how thick, have a fatal flaw. They're rigid, and rigid things don't bend, they shatter. When life throws you that curveball, your perfect system becomes a source of shame. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling, knowing you should be productive, but knowing and doing are separated by an ocean of gray fog. That's when the real enemy reveals itself, the zero effect. One missed step becomes a tumbling cascade down the mountain you spent months climbing. The breakthrough came when I realized I wasn't building one system, I was building two. The first was for my good days, what I call growth mode. This is the system that gets me results. But the second system, this is where the magic happens. I call it survival mode. And it's not about growth, it's about not losing ground. It's about falling gracefully instead of crashing spectacularly. My survival mode protocol has exactly 2 components, and this simplicity is crucial. When you're in crisis, you need something so automatic it happens without conscious thought. The first is the anchor habit. It's one non-negotiable action so automatic it feels absurd. Lying there that morning, crushed by apathy, the only thing my brain agreed to without a fight was making my bed. It was a joke, right? But in that total chaos, that tiny island of order became my life raft. The second is the recovery action. This isn't about productivity. It's about psychological first aid. I had tried to meditate, but my thoughts attacked me. I tried to read, but the letters swam on the page. Then I just sat by the window with a cup of tea for 5 minutes. No agenda, no goal. And for the first time that day, the gray fog in my head began to clear. Here's what changed everything. I redefined what victory looked like on my worst days. Instead of measuring success by how much I accomplished, I measured it by whether I went to bed having completed my survival protocol. Made my bed? Victory. Sat by the window for 5 minutes? Victory. That's it. Instead of ending the day in a spiral of shame, I ended it with a sense of accomplishment. Small, maybe, but real. And that tiny victory became the foundation for tomorrow's recovery. But I have to be honest, my first survival protocol was a disaster. It was still too ambitious. Do a 10-minute stretch and make a healthy smoothie. The very first time I needed it, I failed even at that. And that failure taught me the most important rule. Your emergency plan can't just be simple. It has to be stupidly simple. So when you build yours, start there. The most important thing is that it must be designed when you're feeling good. Crisis planning done in the middle of a crisis is like trying to build a life raft while you're drowning. Identify your most automatic habit. This becomes your anchor. Then choose one thing that consistently makes you feel slightly better. This becomes your recovery action. Write it down, put it somewhere visible. Practice it when you don't need it, so it's available when you do. What I discovered is that having a survival protocol changed how I approached my good days too. Knowing I had a plan for the worst-case scenarios made me less anxious. This is what psychologists call preparedness confidence, the calm that comes from knowing you have a plan. The strangest thing about building a survival protocol is that it actually makes you less likely to need it. When you remove the catastrophic thinking from your worst days, they become less frightening. You're not laying in bed thinking, I'm a failure. You're thinking, this is a storm, I have a plan, I will weather this. Planning for your worst days doesn't invite them, it disarms them. As I write this, it's been 2 years since I first developed my protocol. I've used it probably 30 times. Each time I went to bed knowing I had survived with dignity. But here's the real victory. Those survival days gradually became shorter and less frequent, not because I became superhuman, but because I became human. I stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to be prepared. The discipline that lasts isn't the discipline that never fails. It's the discipline that knows how to fail forward. Tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to do something. Think about your worst day in terms of motivation and energy. Now, imagine waking up tomorrow feeling that way. What would you need to do to go to bed tomorrow night feeling like you hadn't lost ground? Write it down. Make it simple. Make it automatic. Because your worst day is coming. Not because I'm pessimistic, but because I'm human, and so are you. And when it comes, you'll either be ready for it or you'll be surprised by it. The choice is yours. The people who scare chaos the most aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who fall beautifully, stand up immediately, and keep walking. That's the real power of discipline. Not the power to be perfect, but the power to be prepared. Not the power to never fail, but the power to fail forward. And that power, that's unbreakable. So you did it. You found the secret. You laid the perfect first brick. I remember that feeling. After years of building grand, complicated routines that would collapse in a week, I finally learned the truth. Start small. So small it feels stupid. 1 push-up, 1 minute of meditation, 1 glass of water. I laid my first brick, and for the first time, it didn't wobble. It was solid. I felt powerful. And then, I did what everyone does. I tried to build a skyscraper on top of it overnight. The next day I thought, if I can do 1 push-up, I can do 50, and meditate for an hour, and run 5 miles. And by Wednesday, my perfect little brick was buried under the rubble of my own ambition. My discipline was gone. The momentum was dead. I was back at square one, feeling like a failure, wondering what I was missing. The answer wasn't another habit. It was a different kind of habit, a master key. And I call it the domino habit. We're not just going to talk about adding a habit. We're going to find your domino habit, the one single routine that once you push it, starts a chain reaction that builds everything else for you. You've heard of an anchor habit, the one thing that holds you steady when life gets stormy. That's essential. That's your first brick. But an anchor is defensive. It stops you from drifting. A domino habit is offensive. It creates momentum out of thin air. It's the tiny, effortless push that topples giants. Imagine a small domino, just an inch tall. You can tip it with your pinky finger. Now imagine that domino tips over another one that's slightly bigger. And that one tips another, bigger still. Soon, that tiny, effortless push is toppling a domino the size of a building. That's the power we're unlocking today. Not the power of brute force, but the power of strategic leverage. I've discovered there are only 3 kinds of these master habits that truly matter. The domino of energy, the domino of clarity, and the third is the one that the world's most successful people use unconsciously, but almost never talk about. Let's start with energy. The first domino, and maybe the most powerful, is the domino of energy. Its mortal enemy is the morning zombie. You know that guy. The alarm goes off and you open your eyes, but you're not really awake. Your body feels heavy, your mind is a swamp, and the thought of doing anything productive feels like trying to climb Mount Everest in flip-flops. You can have the best plan in the world, but the morning zombie will devour it for breakfast. The domino of energy is the single tiny action that kills the zombie. For me, it was putting a glass of water on my nightstand before bed. The very first thing I did, before my feet even touched the floor, was drink it. It wasn't about hydration science. It was about the signal. It was a push. Suddenly, I wasn't just a groggy mess. I was a person who had already done something. That simple act made it 10% easier to get out of bed, which made it 10% easier to stretch for 1 minute, which made it 10% easier to not hit snooze. A domino of energy could be a 10-minute walk in the morning sun. It could be 5 deep breaths by an open window. It's not the act itself that matters. It's the energy it unlocks for every other act that follows. The second is the domino of clarity. Its enemy is the decision fog. This fog rolls in when you have a million things to do but no idea where to begin. It's that feeling of paralysis. You sit down to work, open your laptop, stare at the screen, and your brain just spins. You check emails, then social media, then the news, because making an actual choice feels overwhelming. The decision fog drains your mental energy faster than anything else. A domino of clarity is the simple act that cuts through it like a lighthouse beam. My domino of clarity was writing down my one big thing for the next day before I closed my laptop at night. Just one sentence. Tomorrow, I will finish the script outline. That's it. It took 2 minutes. But when I woke up, there was no fog. I knew exactly what the most important domino to push was. There was no debate, no negotiation. For you, it might be 5 minutes of journaling to clear your head. It might be planning your next day's outfit. It's any tiny ritual that replaces 100 chaotic decisions with one simple, clear path. When you know where you're going, you don't need willpower to start walking. And now the third domino, the one I promised you. It's the domino of order. Its enemy is the friction monster. Friction is the invisible force that makes hard things harder. It's all the tiny little obstacles between you and the thing you're supposed to do. I remember buying this expensive online course on coding. I was so excited, I never even logged in once. Why? Because the thought of finding the login email, remembering the password, the friction monster made it feel like a chore. My $200 sat there mocking me for weeks. It was a tiny obstacle, but it was enough to kill my ambition. The domino of order is a habit that kills the monster before it even appears. It's about making your desired path the path of least resistance. My domino became packing my gym bag the night before and leaving it by the door. That was it. The next morning, the decision wasn't, should I go to the gym? The decision was, should I pick up this bag that's already packed and waiting for me? The friction was gone. For you, it might be cleaning your desk for 5 minutes at the end of the day, so you start the next with a clean slate. It might be the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. These aren't about being a neat freak. They're about engineering an environment where doing the right thing is the easiest thing. Energy, clarity, order. Those are the three master dominoes. Now here's the most important part, the step where most people still fail. You don't get to pick all three. You don't even get to pick two. You pick one. Look at your life. What is your biggest enemy right now? Are you the morning zombie, drained before you even start? Or are you lost in the decision fog, spinning your wheels? Or is the friction monster making every good choice a monumental effort? Be honest and choose the one domino that will make the biggest difference. And then you do it for 2 weeks. Just that one thing. You're not building a wall anymore. You're a jeweler, carefully and patiently forging the first link in a chain. And after those 2 weeks, when that habit is automatic, you don't just stack another one on top. You link it. You say, after I drink my glass of water, I will write down my one big thing, clarity. You use the momentum of the first to trigger the second. Now you have a chain. Now you have a system. And that's when something magical happens. The discipline you were trying so hard to force, it starts to build itself. The system starts to run on its own. People will start to notice. They won't see the tiny domino you push each morning. They won't know about your 2-minute rule or your single sentence in a journal. They'll just see the results. They'll see the calm, the focus, the quiet, unstoppable momentum you carry with you. They'll see someone who says they're going to do something, and then they just do it. And that is the kind of discipline that scares people. Not the loud, flashy, unsustainable burst of a superhuman for a day, but the quiet, unshakable consistency of a well-designed life. It's not about being a robot. It's about becoming an architect. So stop trying to be a hero. Stop piling on more bricks. Go find your domino. And if you want to become an architect of your own life instead of a victim of your own impulses, make sure you subscribe. We're just getting started. Now head down to the comments and tell me one thing. Which domino are you starting with? Energy, clarity, or order? I want to know. I finally broke my brain, and it almost destroyed me. You know the feeling I'm talking about. That raw electric power when you finally bend your own mind to your will. The 5 a.m. alarm wasn't a suggestion, it was a command I obeyed without question. Cold showers weren't a challenge, they were a baptism in ice and fire, washing away the last remnants of weakness. Procrastination was a ghost I had exorcised, a forgotten myth from a past life. I had followed all the steps. I had declared war on the soft, scared creature inside me that craved comfort. And I had won, utterly. I was a king on a throne of discipline, the ruler of my own internal kingdom. For a while it was glorious. I was a machine of pure productivity. Every task on my to-do list was a dragon, and I was the knight, slaying them one by one, day after day. My friends saw the transformation. They saw the focus in my eyes, the relentless drive. They'd ask me, "How do you do it?" And I would smile, a cold, knowing smile, because I had the secret. I had learned to treat my brain not as a friend, but as an unruly subordinate that needed to be whipped into shape. And it worked. Until the day I sat on my throne and realized my kingdom was completely, terrifyingly silent. The dragons were all dead. The battles were all won. And I felt nothing. The victory was hollow. The relentless discipline that had been my armor started to feel like a cage. My to-do list, once a roadmap to glory, now felt like a list of prison chores. The fire in my belly, that righteous anger that fueled my war, had dwindled to a cold gray ash. I was still waking up at 5 a.m. I was still taking the cold showers. I was still executing my tasks. But I was a machine running on momentum, not on purpose. The voice in my head that I had fought so hard to silence wasn't screaming, "I can't," anymore. It was whispering a far more dangerous question. Why? I remember the exact moment the machine broke. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had a simple task in front of me, write a 1-page report. A month before, I would have crushed it in 20 minutes. But that day, I stared at the blank screen for 3 hours. It wasn't laziness. It was something deeper. It was paralysis. I tried the old tricks. I tried the 3-second rule. 3, 2, 1, go. Nothing. My first thought? I wasn't being hard enough. The machine wasn't broken, it just needed more punishment. So I doubled down. 2 cold showers a day. No days off at the gym, even when my body screamed. I tried to restart the war, but this time there was no enemy to fight. Only emptiness. And that was the true rock bottom. The realization that more force wasn't the answer. The next morning, the 5 a.m. alarm went off. The voice of the drill sergeant in my head screamed, "Get up!" But for the first time, I didn't move. I simply asked the silence in the room, "What do you actually need right now?" And the answer that came back wasn't more sleep. It was crystal clear. A reason. In the silence of that defeat, something shifted. I finally understood. The entire premise of my war was wrong. I wasn't supposed to be a soldier endlessly fighting a rebellion in my own head. I was supposed to be the general, the strategist, the king who understands his terrain and his army. My brain wasn't a lazy, treacherous enemy. It was an ancient, powerful ally that spoke a different language, the language of survival, energy preservation, and clear signals. My fatigue wasn't a weakness, it was a data point. My lack of motivation wasn't a moral failure, it was a diagnostic report. Instead of shouting orders, I started listening. When that feeling of resistance rose up, that familiar "I don't want to," I stopped treating it as an insurrection. I started treating it as intelligence. I would pause and ask, "Okay, what is this? Is the task unclear? Am I burned out and need a real break? Does this task even align with my ultimate goals, or is it just a meaningless chore I put on my list to feel productive?" This wasn't about giving in. It was about gathering intel. You can't win a campaign if you ignore the reports from your frontline scouts. Your feelings, your resistance, your exhaustion, your fear are those scouts. From there, I realized my second mistake. I was obsessed with habits and discipline on a micro level, but I was ignoring the system on a macro level. Fighting the urge to check your phone every morning for an hour is discipline. Leaving your phone in another room overnight is a system. Forcing yourself to go to the gym through sheer willpower every day is discipline. Finding a sport you genuinely love and making friends there is a system. I stopped trying to be a perfect soldier in a hostile environment and started becoming an architect, redesigning the environment itself so that the right actions became the path of least resistance. My brain wasn't lazy, it was just incredibly efficient. So I made the things I wanted to do the most the efficient options available. And the most revolutionary discovery was the art of strategic rest. The grind culture I came from taught me that rest was a 4-letter word. It was for the weak. But no warrior fights 24/7. No athlete performs at their peak without recovery. I learned to see rest not as an escape, but as a weapon. It wasn't about collapsing on the couch and scrolling into oblivion. It was about actively recharging. A walk in nature without my phone. A scheduled hour to read a novel. A deliberate, scheduled shutdown. This wasn't weakness. This was sharpening the axe. My productivity didn't just return, it skyrocketed. Because now, when I worked, I was a fully charged weapon, not a sputtering, exhausted engine. I'm telling you all this because I know many of you are on that same battlefield I was. You're fighting the good fight, and you're winning. But I want to offer you a map to the next level. The goal isn't to become a perfect, soulless machine. A machine follows code. The goal is to become the architect who writes the code. The war for discipline is a vital first step. It teaches you that you're in control. It gets you out of the mud. But the real work, the work that leads to a life of deep fulfillment and sustainable power, isn't in winning the battle. It's in what you build on the battlefield afterwards. So if you've ever felt that hollowness after a hard-won victory, if you're tired of being at war with yourself, know this: you're not failing. You're just ready for the next campaign. The difference between a soldier and a king is that a soldier follows the map, but a king draws it. In my next video, I'll show you the exact framework I use to draw my map for the week, a system that turns goals into automatic actions. But for now, if you're ready to learn how, you've found your new home. Subscribe, and let's start drawing the blueprints for your empire.